The ice moon of Crethus, 7 wasn't on any tourist maps, and for good reason. This frozen rock at the edge of civilized space held the Galactic Council's dirtiest secret, a prison for creatures so dangerous that just knowing about them could cause panic across 100 worlds. The facility was buried deep beneath miles of ice, protected by energy shields that could withstand a supernova blast. Nothing got in. Nothing got out. That was the idea anyway. Inside the frozen halls, the most terrifying predator in the known universe waited in stasis. The aliens called it Varades, though the name didn't really matter. What mattered was what it could do. This wasn't just some big scary monster. Varades was a living nightmare that had turned entire civilizations into ash centuries ago. 3 colony worlds. Billions of lives. Gone in weeks. The creature looked like something out of ancient Earth mythology. Massive wings, scales that shimmered like molten metal, claws that could tear through starship hulls like paper. But its appearance wasn't the scary part. The truly horrifying thing about Varades was its biology. The dragon didn't just kill and eat. It absorbed. It evolved. It became. Centuries ago, Varades had found a species of telepathic crystal beings on a distant moon. Beautiful creatures that communicated through pure thought. The dragon consumed them, and suddenly it could read minds across star systems. Then it discovered a colony of living metal organisms, beings made of self-repairing alloys. Varades ate them too and gained the ability to regenerate from nearly any injury. Blow off its wing, it would grow back in hours. Blast a hole through its chest, the wound would seal itself before your eyes. Every species it consumed made it stronger. Made it more. The Galactic Council had spent decades hunting the creature, losing entire fleets in the process. When they finally captured it using experimental quantum nets, they made a decision. Varades couldn't be killed, they tried everything. So instead they locked it away in permanent stasis, frozen in time, kept in a state between life and death. For centuries that worked. The dragon slept in its frozen prison, fed through tubes with sterile nutrient paste that had no biological information to absorb. Just basic proteins and minerals synthesized in labs, lifeless and empty. The creature stayed dormant, trapped in its eternal nightmare. Then humanity showed up. When humans first made contact with the Galactic Council, the aliens didn't know what to make of these loud, energetic newcomers. Earth was classified as a Class 12 death world, one of the most hostile planets in the database. The gravity alone would crush most species. The diseases could wipe out entire populations. The wildlife was absurdly dangerous. Humans shared their planet with creatures that could kill them in thousands of creative ways, and they just acted like it was normal. But humans didn't just survive their nightmare world. They thrived on it. They'd conquered every environment, from frozen poles to burning deserts. They'd domesticated some of the planet's predators and turned them into pets. They'd learned to eat things that were literally poisonous to most species and called it cuisine. The senior members of the Galactic Council held an emergency classified meeting after the initial Earth surveys came back. Commander Threll, the four-armed Valkyrian who oversaw the Crethus 7 facility, attended via secure hologram. What he heard in that meeting made his blood run cold. Earth's biosphere was chaos. Beautiful, terrifying chaos. The diversity of life was off the charts. The evolutionary strategies were aggressive and creative. The chemical complexity of even basic Earth organisms made alien scientists nervous. One researcher had analyzed a simple Earth apple and found compounds that didn't exist anywhere else in the galaxy. The Council's chief xenobiologist, a cautious creature named Plix, delivered the killing blow. Her analysis was simple and damning. If Varades ever consumed anything from Earth, the adaptive potential would be catastrophic. The dragon could absorb Earth's resilience, its diversity, its sheer stubborn refusal to quit. The results would be unpredictable and probably unstoppable. The vote was unanimous. A new protocol was added to Varades's containment procedures, stamped with the highest security clearance. Under absolutely no circumstances could the dragon consume any biological material from Earth. Not plants. Not animals. Not even a single molecule of human DNA. The prohibition was absolute. Commander Threll took the order seriously. He'd run the Crethus 7 facility for 40 years without a single breach. He knew every corridor, every security system, every backup protocol. He installed additional scanners specifically calibrated to detect Earth organic compounds. He briefed his entire staff on the new protocols. He even banned human personnel from the lower levels entirely just to be safe. The facility had held for centuries. The systems were redundant and flawless. Commander Threll went to sleep each night confident that the most dangerous predator in the universe would never wake up. He had no idea how wrong he was. He had no idea that in 3 days, a human salvage crew would dock at an auxiliary port with a cargo hold full of supplies from home. And he definitely had no idea that among those supplies, wrapped in vacuum-sealed plastic, were 12 loaves of sourdough bread from a small bakery in Portland, Oregon. Everything was about to change. Captain Jack Miller wasn't having a great week. His salvage ship, the Pioneer's Hope, was 3 months past its maintenance schedule, the cargo hold smelled like burnt hydraulic fluid, and they were 2 jobs away from bankruptcy. So when a distress beacon pinged on his sensors near some remote ice moon he'd never heard of, Jack did what any desperate salvage captain would do. He answered it. "Could be a derelict freighter," he said to his crew, trying to sound optimistic. "Easy pickings. We strip the good parts, sell them at the next station, and maybe we can finally fix our own junk heap." Emily Ross, his engineer and the person who actually kept the ship running, gave him a flat look. "Or it's a trap. Pirates love using fake distress signals." "Always so positive," Jack muttered, but he knew she was probably right. Emily usually was, which annoyed him more than he'd admit. Ben Carter, their pilot and the youngest of the crew at 24, was already plotting a course. "I'm picking up a massive structure on the moon's surface. Or under it, actually. It's huge. Whatever's down there, it's not natural." Jack frowned. The distress beacon was automated, probably triggered by some system failure. But that massive structure bothered him. It wasn't on any of their charts, which meant it was either very new or very classified. Neither option was great for independent contractors like them. Still, they needed the work. They needed it badly. The Pioneer's Hope limped into orbit around Crethis 7, and that's when things got weird. The distress beacon was coming from some kind of research facility or prison, though the architecture was strange even by alien standards. There were scorch marks on the outer walls. Recent ones. Jack?" Ben's voice had that nervous edge it got when things were about to go sideways. "I'm reading weapons fire. Recent. Like within the last hour recent." Before Jack could respond, his comm system crackled to life. It was an automated message repeating in a dozen languages. The translation software took a moment, then spit out a chilling message. "Emergency protocol active. All vessels maintain distance. Facility compromised. Do not approach." Emily looked at Jack. "We're leaving, right? Please tell me we're leaving." Jack should have listened to her. He really should have. But the message said the facility was compromised, which meant damaged systems, spare parts, maybe even salvageable tech. And there was an auxiliary docking port on the far side, away from whatever fighting had happened. Quick in, quick out. "We'll just take a look," Jack said, already regretting it. They docked at the auxiliary port without incident. The facility seemed dead, emergency lighting only, no life signs on their scanners. Jack, Emily, and Ben suited up and did a quick sweep of the area near their ship. Nothing valuable, just empty corridors and signs of panic. Whatever had happened here, people had run. They returned to the Pioneer's Hope empty-handed and frustrated. At least the ship was secure, docked and locked. They'd wait a few hours, see if any official vessels showed up, maybe get some information about what actually happened. That's when everything went wrong. Deep in the facility, something had happened that Commander Threll would later call a cascading systems failure. Pirates had attacked the station 3 hours ago, trying to steal classified research. They'd failed, but not before damaging the main power grid. Backup systems kicked in, but there was a delay. Just 90 seconds. 90 seconds where certain critical systems ran on reserve power. 90 seconds where Varati's stasis field dropped to 60%. For a creature that had spent centuries planning, learning, and waiting through telepathic observation, 60% was enough. The dragon's consciousness surged. Its adaptive biology, even in stasis, had been slowly studying the facility's systems through electrical fields. It knew the layout. It knew the weaknesses. When the field flickered, Varati struck. The creature had been frozen mid-roar for 300 years. Now that roar finally escaped, shaking the entire facility like an earthquake. Emergency alarms screamed. Security teams scrambled. Commander Threll, who'd been coordinating repairs in the command center, felt his heart stop. Full lockdown. Seal all sectors. Call the Council fleet. Move, move, move. But Varati's wasn't just powerful. It was smart. Centuries of consuming telepathic species meant it could sense life, could read intentions through brain patterns. It moved through service tunnels that security teams hadn't even reached yet, deliberately triggering more system failures to create chaos and cover its escape. The dragon had one goal: food. Real food. Not the sterile paste it had endured for centuries, but something with biological complexity, something it could absorb and learn from. That's when it smelled something impossible. Through kilometers of corridor, through sealed bulkheads and recycled air, Varades detected a scent unlike anything in the galaxy. Complex, organic, rich with biological information. The creature's enhanced senses analyzed it: fermented grain, yeast cultures, heat-processed starches. And underneath it all, traces of something that made its ancient predator instincts surge with curiosity. The scent was coming from the auxiliary port. From the human ship that had docked 20 minutes ago. Varades changed course. Security teams trying to intercept it suddenly found themselves chasing empty corridors while the Dragon used maintenance shafts to circle around. 3 security bulkheads stood between it and the source of that smell. The creature tore through them like tissue paper, its claws ripping through reinforced alloy designed to contain singularities. On the Pioneer's Hope, Jack was reviewing salvage reports when the ship's hull sensors went crazy. Something's hitting the docking port. Something big. Emily pulled up the security cameras. For 3 seconds nobody spoke. They just stared at the screens showing a 30-foot dragon made of scales and fury tearing into their ship. Bridge. No. Run. They made it to the bridge and sealed the blast door just as Varades ripped through the cargo hold. Through internal cameras, they watched in horror as the creature systematically destroyed their supplies, their equipment, their entire livelihood, searching for something. Then it found the emergency rations. Specifically, it found 12 vacuum-sealed packages of sourdough bread that Emily had bought from her favorite bakery before they left Earth 3 months ago. The dragon stopped. Its massive head lowered. And very carefully, almost gently, Varades picked up a package of bread in its claws. Jack, Emily, and Ben watched, terrified and confused, as the most dangerous predator in the universe opened the package and ate their sandwich bread. "What," Ben whispered, "is happening?" None of them knew it yet, but everything was about to change. For them. For Varades. For the entire galaxy. All because of bread. Through the security feeds on the bridge, Jack and his crew had a front-row seat to the strangest thing any of them would ever witness. The dragon, this massive, terrifying creature that had just torn through reinforced bulkheads like cardboard, was eating their bread. Not destroying it. Not burning it with plasma breath. Actually eating it one loaf at a time. "Is this really happening?" Ben whispered, his face pressed against the monitor. "Are we about to die because of sandwich bread?" Emily couldn't look away from the screen. The dragon's movements were almost careful now, deliberate. It had shredded their fuel cells, scattered their spare parts across the cargo hold, and punched through their water tanks without a second glance. But when it found those vacuum-sealed packages from Miller's Bakery back in Portland, everything changed. Varades held each package delicately between claws that could crush steel. The creature's head tilted, studying the bread like it was the most fascinating thing in the universe. Then it bit down, and the sound, the actual sound of the dragon chewing, echoed through the ship's audio sensors. Jack had seen a lot of weird things in 15 years of salvage work. He'd found alien artifacts that defied physics. He'd watched star nurseries being born. He'd once discovered a derelict ship where the crew had apparently tried to teach themselves to breathe vacuum. But this? A galaxy-destroying predator having a moment with baked goods? This was new. The dragon ate the first loaf slowly, like it was trying to understand every molecule. Then the second. Then the third. By the 4th loaf, something started happening. Varades stopped moving. Just froze completely mid-reach for another package. For 10 seconds nothing happened. The crew held their breath, wondering if the bread had somehow poisoned it. Maybe Earth food was toxic to alien biology? Maybe they'd accidentally saved the galaxy with carbs? Then the dragon's scale started changing. It was subtle at first, a ripple of color like oil on water. But the ripple spread, moving across the creature's entire body in waves. The scales shifted from metallic silver to something else, something that looked almost organic. Patterns appeared and disappeared, symbols that might have been writing or might have been random, nobody could tell. "Emily," Jack said quietly. "Your bread. What exactly was in it?" "What? It's just sourdough. Flour, water, salt, yeast." "Why?" "Because I think it's doing something to that thing." Emily pulled up the cargo manifest on her tablet, scanning the details she'd barely paid attention to when loading supplies 3 months ago. "It's from Miller's Bakery on Hawthorne Street. They use local organic wheat, natural fermentation, some kind of special starter culture they've maintained for like 50 years. She trailed off, her eyes widening. "Jack, sourdough isn't sterile. The fermentation process involves hundreds of different yeast strains and bacteria. And if it's organic wheat, it probably has trace amounts of soil bacteria, maybe even pollen, atmospheric particles. In English, please. That bread is full of Earth. Like actually full of it. Microscopic pieces of our entire biosphere. They looked back at the screen. Varades was shaking now, its whole body convulsing. The dragon's mouth opened, and instead of the roar they expected, something else came out, a sound that was almost like confusion, almost like fear. Inside the dragon's ancient body, systems that had evolved over millions of years were trying to process something they'd never encountered. Varades' adaptive biology was designed to consume and absorb, to take the best qualities of other species and integrate them. It had done this hundreds of times across centuries. But Earth's biology wasn't like anything else in the galaxy. The yeast strains from the sourdough starter carried genetic information from a planet where life had spent billions of years in constant competition and cooperation. The wheat had grown in soil teeming with bacteria, fungi, and microorganisms that existed in complex relationships. Even the water used in the bread carried dissolved minerals and compounds from Earth's unique chemistry. Varades had eaten telepathic crystals and gained their mental powers. It had consumed metal beings and gained regeneration. But those species had evolved in stable, predictable environments. Earth was chaos. Earth was a world where life adapted to everything, where creatures cooperated and competed simultaneously, where the simple act of making bread required a partnership between humans and microorganisms. The dragon's neural pathways exploded with new connections. Its digestive system, which could break down any substance in the universe, struggled to categorize what it was processing. Was the yeast symbiotic or parasitic? Was fermentation a form of cooperation or consumption? The wheat had been killed to make flour, but the yeast had been cultivated and kept alive for generations. Nothing made sense by the dragon's understanding of predator and prey. Alarms screamed through the facility. Commander Threll burst into the auxiliary dock with a full strike team, weapons charged and ready. He expected to find the dragon in the middle of destruction, probably eating the human crew. Instead, he found Varades lying motionless in a cargo hold full of scattered supplies and empty bread packages. "Stasis nets now," Threll ordered. But his weapons officer hesitated, pointing at the readouts. The dragon's life signs were spiking in impossible ways. Its body temperature was fluctuating. Its brain activity looked like a star-going supernova. "Sir, I don't think stasis will work. His biology is changing too fast. The field won't know what to lock onto." Threll's tactical mind raced. "Get those humans out of here before." Varades' eyes opened. But they were different now. Still ancient. Still powerful. Still terrifying. But something had changed behind them. The blank predator stare was gone, replaced by something the commander had never seen in all his years guarding the creature. Awareness. Real awareness. The dragon's gaze moved slowly across the cargo hold, taking in the destroyed supplies, the breach in the hull, the strike team with weapons aimed at its head. Then those massive eyes focused on the bridge door, where 3 humans were watching through a reinforced window. Varades looked at them, and for just a moment, Commander Threll could swear the most dangerous predator in the universe looked confused. The dragon opened its mouth, and everyone tensed for the killing blow. Instead it spoke. More. The massive council chamber filled with worried alien leaders from across the galaxy. Emergency alarms had been blaring for hours. Every screen showed the same terrifying image. Varades, their ultimate weapon, their unstoppable killing machine, had just eaten something from Earth. This was their nightmare scenario. For generations, they had kept the dragon away from organic matter, feeding it only pure energy and minerals. Now everything had changed. The dragon had consumed bread. Simple human bread. Military commanders paced nervously. Scientists checked their instruments over and over, waiting for the transformation they all feared. Would Varades become even more powerful? Would this Earth material make the creature impossible to control? Some suggested destroying the dragon immediately before it was too late. But then something happened that nobody expected. Something that changed everything. The dragon spoke. Not the usual roars or threatening growls. Real words. Actual communication. The voice came through every speaker in the facility, deep and rumbling like thunder rolling across mountains. "More," Varades said, and the entire building shook from the sound. "I require more of this bread." Silence fell across the council chamber. Scientists stared at each other in disbelief. For 3,000 years, Varades had never requested anything. It simply destroyed what it was told to destroy. It consumed what it was given. It existed as a weapon, nothing more. But now it was asking for something specific. Something it wanted. The council's top scientists rushed to analyze what was happening inside the dragon's body. Their instruments showed readings they had never seen before. The bread wasn't just being digested. It was being studied. Understood. The dragon's consciousness was expanding in ways nobody had predicted. One scientist noticed something strange in the data. "Commander, look at this. The dragon isn't becoming more aggressive. It's becoming more complex." They pulled up detailed scans of what the bread had taught varieties. The dragon had absorbed more than just nutrients. It had absorbed a concept completely foreign to its existence: cooperation. Inside that simple loaf of bread lay millions of years of evolution working together. Yeast cells that helped wheat become something new. Wheat that provided food for humans who planted more wheat. Humans who cultivated yeast to make better bread. Everything connected. Everything supporting everything else. The dragon had never encountered anything like this. In its entire existence, it had only known isolation, domination, and destruction. Every interaction was about power. Every relationship was about control. The strong consumed the weak. The powerful destroyed the powerless. But bread told a different story. Billions of tiny organisms working together. None could survive alone, but together they created something wonderful. The yeast needed the wheat. The wheat needed the soil. The soil needed countless microorganisms breaking down nutrients. Every piece depended on every other piece. This idea fascinated varieties in ways that pure power never had. Commander Threll studied the reports with growing amazement. He made a decision that many on the council thought was dangerously insane. He suggested letting Emily Ross, the human whose ship had carried the bread, communicate directly with the dragon. The council chamber erupted in argument. Half the members thought it was brilliant. The other half thought it was suicide. But varieties had specifically asked for the humans whose ship contained the bread. Not demanded. Not threatened. Asked. Emily agreed immediately when contacted. She wasn't afraid, though perhaps she should have been. She sat in a specially shielded communication room, looking at a screen that showed Varieties' enormous eye watching her. "Why do you want more bread?" she asked simply, her voice calm and clear. The dragon's eye blinked slowly. When it spoke again, its voice was quieter, almost thoughtful. The response came through, and everyone listening felt their understanding of the universe shift. "Because I have never tasted possibility before," Varieties said. The words hung in the air like magic. Scientists stopped taking notes. Military commanders forgot their weapons protocols. Even the oldest council members who had seen civilizations rise and fall, felt something new stirring in their hearts. Varieties continued, and now its voice carried something that sounded almost like wonder. "For thousands of years, I have tasted only endings. Destruction. Finality. Everything I touched simply ceased to exist. But this bread tastes of beginnings. Of things working together to become more than they were alone. Of small things creating something larger. Of weakness becoming strength through cooperation." Emily smiled. She understood. "That's what Earth is," she said gently. "That's what life is. Not about being the strongest or the most powerful. It's about finding ways to lift each other up." The dragon was quiet for a long moment. Then it asked another question, one that made the entire Galactic Council realize their weapon had truly transformed into something they never imagined. "Will you teach me more about possibility?" Varieties asked. And with those words, everything changed forever. The weeks that followed were unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Varieties, the ancient dragon that had terrified civilizations for 3,000 years, was changing right before everyone's eyes. Its massive form still radiated incredible power, perhaps even more than before. Energy crackled around its scales with greater intensity. Its presence still made the strongest warriors feel small and insignificant. But something fundamental had shifted inside the creature. The hunger for destruction had been replaced by something the dragon had never felt before: curiosity. Emily Ross found herself in an extraordinary position. Every day she sat in that shielded communication room, talking to a being older than most civilizations. At first, their conversations were simple. She would describe basic things about Earth, about humanity, about the everyday life that seemed so ordinary to her but absolutely fascinating to Varieties. She explained how humans gathered around tables to eat together. How cooking wasn't just about survival but about creativity and love. How a grandmother teaching her grandchild to bake cookies was passing down more than a recipe. It was passing down history, culture, and connection. The dragon listened to every word with intense focus. Its ancient mind, which had spent millennia calculating destruction and planning conquests, now absorbed information about farmers' markets and family dinners and neighborhood barbecues. Emily described how humans took raw ingredients and transformed them into something greater than the sum of their parts. A tomato, some herbs, patience, and care became a sauce that brought families together. Flour, eggs, and sugar became a birthday cake that made children laugh with joy. Simple grains became bread that had fed civilizations for thousands of years. "We don't just eat to survive," Emily explained one day. "We eat to celebrate, to comfort, to connect." Every culture on Earth has built traditions around sharing food. Weddings have special meals. Funerals have special meals. When someone is sick, we bring them soup. When someone succeeds, we bake them a cake. Food is how we say things words can't express. Varieties absorbed every detail. The dragon's ancient consciousness began understanding something profound. Humanity's real strength wasn't in their weapons or technology. It came from their ability to cooperate, to transform, to make something beautiful from simple beginnings. The bread had been a perfect teacher. Basic ingredients: flour, water, yeast, salt somehow became something complex and wonderful through process and time. Just like humanity itself. Individuals who were weak alone but incredibly strong together. Then one day, Varieties made an offer that stunned the entire Galactic Council. "I propose an exchange," the dragon announced during an official session. "My freedom for my service. I will no longer destroy civilizations. Instead, I will protect them. But I have one condition. I wish to travel to Earth. I want to see the world that created bread. I want to understand the place that taught me possibility." The council chamber exploded into chaos. Half the members thought this was a trick. The other half thought it was an opportunity. Emergency meetings were called. Security protocols were debated. Risk assessments were calculated and recalculated. Commander Threll stood firmly against the idea. He paced before the council, his voice sharp with concern. "This creature has destroyed entire planets. It has ended civilizations. And now we're supposed to trust it near Earth? Near the very world whose curiosity started this whole situation? It's too dangerous. We should keep Varieties imprisoned here where we can control it." But Emily spoke on behalf of the dragon, and her words carried unexpected weight. "Varieties could have escaped weeks ago," she pointed out. "After consuming the bread, its power increased. The containment fields are barely holding it now, and the dragon knows this. It could break free whenever it wants. But it hasn't. It chose to stay. It chose to talk. It chose understanding over violence. Doesn't that mean something?" The debates continued for days. Arguments flew back and forth. Some council members wanted guarantees that didn't exist. Others wanted assurances nobody could give. Finally, Ambassador David Wright, humanity's official representative to the Galactic Council, stood to speak. The chamber fell quiet. Everyone knew this vote would likely come down to Earth's decision about accepting the dragon. Wright looked around the room slowly, making eye contact with representatives from hundreds of worlds. When he spoke, his voice was calm but powerful. "For years, you've all wondered what made humanity dangerous enough to quarantine," he said. "You thought it was our weapons, our unpredictability, our rapid technological advancement. But you were looking at the wrong things. Earth's deadliest export isn't weapons. It's not disease or chaos. It's something far more dangerous to the established order." He paused, letting the tension build. "Earth's deadliest export is the idea that even the most dangerous beings can choose something better. That change is always possible. That nothing is permanently beyond redemption. This scares you because it means your comfortable certainties aren't as solid as you thought. But it also offers hope for a better galaxy." The vote was called. It passed by a narrow margin. Varieties would travel to Earth under careful supervision, not as a prisoner, but as something the galaxy had never seen before. A reformed predator seeking enlightenment through human culture and cuisine. As the massive transport ship prepared to depart, carrying the dragon toward Earth, Emily visited Varieties one final time before the journey. "What really made you change?" she asked quietly. "Was it truly just the bread?" The dragon's enormous eyes reflected something that looked like wonder, maybe even joy. When Varieties spoke, its voice was soft, almost gentle. "I spent 3,000 years consuming power," the dragon said. "Always becoming more of what I already was. Stronger. More destructive. More feared. I thought that was existence. I thought that was purpose. Then I ate something humans made with their own hands, and for the first time in my entire existence I became something different. Something better. Something I never imagined I could be." Varieties shifted slightly, its massive form settling more comfortably. "If humanity can transform simple grain into nourishment and art, into culture and connection, what could they help me become?" What possibilities exist that I've never even dreamed of? The transport lifted off, carrying an ancient dragon toward a small blue planet that had accidentally taught the universe's most feared predator about hope, transformation, and the power of breaking bread together. The galaxy watched and waited, learning that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't violence or technology. It was their stubborn belief that anyone, even a 3,000-year-old instrument of destruction, could choose to become something better. One loaf of bread at a time. The end.